Welcome, everybody. Kerwin Jordan here, Lifestyles of the Rich in Faith Church, and lifestylesoftherichiinfaith.org, and Lifestyles Church YouTube channel. Kerwin and Brenda here. We greet you. We thank you for joining us once again. Those that have been following me, we've been talking about the Garden of Eden lifestyle. And the last couple of sessions, we sort of introduced the serpent, which is another term for Satan. So I want to go back to Genesis chapter 3, and I want to go a little bit further and try to my best to give more information and reveal exactly this particular personality. In Genesis chapter 3, as you're turning over there, now the term serpent, you can also use the word snake, okay? And I did a little bit of research. I want to, as you're looking up Genesis chapter 3, here's some things about the snake's or the serpent's nature that I discovered. And I did some research, and I want to share with everybody because I think it'll help give us all more of a bit of an understanding of really what we're dealing with. Now, number one, did you realize that a snake has an inability to love? It also has an inability for affection. Now, these are snakes now. These are the characteristics of their nature. And I can see why the Lord is trying to show us, give us more insight into this spiritual depth of this being called Satan. And also, a snake, they have no capacity for friendship. Their brains, they have brains, although they're small, the brains do not have the capability structures in place like a human for friendship. Isn't that something? Statistically, over 50,000 people are killed every year by snakes. Snakes are not afraid of fire. And it says that snakes do not have friends, nor do they bond with mates. Nor do they care for their young, or if they do, it's very limited. And they have no emotional affection for one another or anything else. Isn't that fascinating? It says that snakes cannot, now listen to this, those of you that try to have pets as snakes, it says that snakes cannot be tamed or domesticated like a dog or a cat. They remain as wild animals such as pythons, boas, or anacondas. Snakes hate being petted. And it says that snakes do not bond or feel any emotions towards humans. So I wanted to share that with you as we go. Now, in Genesis chapter 3 is where this being shows up in the Bible, okay? And I tell you, I'm so thankful to the Lord that he's gotten some information to me and some studies that I've learned outside of the scriptures, scientific proof of things that I've always thought, but I just didn't quite know how to approach it or find it in the Bible. But as information and knowledge has been made available throughout the earth, it's beautiful that God is starting to have this marriage, I would say, between scientific and spiritual. Anyway, I'm going to read, let's go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. It says, "Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field, which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, Has God indeed said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden?" Now, this is a scene in which a spiritual transaction is going on. Now, Eve is there, and I'm saying that this is a spiritual transaction because I've always said that Satan is not physical. That's very, very important. Until your mind can grasp that concept, you may always have challenges and difficulty in life in realizing that who and what we're dealing with is in an unseen an immaterial dimension. Okay, and it starts in the area of the mind, and I hope to be able to show how the mind actually controls the physical brain, or at least it's supposed to. There is evidence today scientifically that the physical body is in itself an intelligent, highly functional, wonderful creation that God gave us to experience life and living and being alive in. And when you discover how your own physical body and its nature is supposed to function, it can actually enhance your lifestyle. However, my job today is to build upon what I've already laid down about the spiritual reality of these spiritual beings, because scientists and many people, they know of Satan and they know of these unseen beings, but the belief of their existence in reality in our world and in our creation is at a minimum, even scientifically. Even though the scientists and the professionals see that there's something there, they don't, they're still kind of grappling at it, okay? So anyway, so I want you to see here that this being Satan is definitely a being, an entity. He's not just spirit. He's in that spiritual realm, and he's not in heaven, okay? He's on the earth. And we deal and have interaction with this being as long as you're here in the physical earth. All your days, you're going to have some type of interaction with this being, either directly. Most of the time it's indirectly. I'm going to show you how it works indirectly, hopefully, and show you in the scriptures. Now, the reason why I'm bringing up Satan, he was referred to as Satan because Jesus himself dealt with Satan regularly. Okay, and I know in the New Testament we see that passage about the temptations. Now, I don't have time to go into detail, but I can show you that Satan was not physically taking Jesus around and putting him on the mountain and stuff the way it's written there. It's a spiritual activity that's going on, and it looks like when you read it that that's physically happened. Now, it affected what Jesus did physically, but Satan is not a physical bodied being. Okay, now I want to go over here to Job chapter 1. And I'm going to show you some things. We've been over there before, but I want to go back to Job chapter 1. And I hope to introduce some things that I found out, because I was asking the Lord, gee, what is this? So in Job chapter 1, we're going to look at verse 1, and I'm just going to read these scriptures. There was a man in the land of Uz, whose name was Job. And that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and avoided evil. Now, this is a good man. This guy was, you can think of many people, maybe yourself, considered good. You do the right thing, or you're doing the best you can and doing the right thing. You don't wish any harm to anybody, and you're just going along living your life. So this is what Job was doing. Then in verse 2 it says, and 7 sons and 3 daughters were born. He had 10 children, 10. And also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east. So Job was very rich, wealthy, happy, he was blessed. Verse 4, and his sons would go and feast in their houses, each one on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. They're partying. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job would send out. Now, this is key here. that Job would sin and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This did Job regularly. Okay, that's verses 1 through 5. Now that's happening in the physical. Those are the activities that were going on. Now there's a shift into a deeper dimension in the unseen realm. Verse 6 now. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. Okay, so now we're seeing activity going on in another world that happens to affect the physical world, natural material world of mankind. God is telling us here. There's activities going on there. And the sons of God, those are angels. Okay? Now, verse 7. And the Lord God said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, now this is, he says, from going to and fro on the earth and from walking back and forth on it. Now, I did a little bit more research on this phrase here that Satan. Now, Satan does have the ability. Some people think that Satan, particularly the religious world, thinks that Satan, he is a liar, but he does have the ability to speak the truth. Okay? Here's the thing. He speaks truth with an intent of evil. Okay? So what he's saying back to the Lord is actually a true statement. All right? He's not lying here. He's going to and fro on the earth. Now, I believe that this is a spiritual being here. And he was a powerful angel of God. That this going to and fro, notice, in the earth and going back and forth upon it, has to do with these electromagnetic fields. I'm going to explain that to you as we go on. Verse 8. Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and avoids evil?" That's a question the Lord is asking Satan. So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing?" Question. Now here's another true statement that Satan is making here. Verse 10. "Have you not made a hedge around him?" I want you to note this hedge around him. I believe that hedge is actually, scientifically, they call it electromagnetic field. That's around not only his body, his whole being, his person, spirit, soul, body, everything. Job had it around him. Now, then it says around his household. There's that electromagnetic field covered everything that Job had going on for him, and around all that he has on every side. You have blessed the works of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. So Job, I would say, was truly a faith man. Okay? However, as time progressed, he began to be concerned about himself, his household, his everything, and his kids. Listen to me closely. He began to think about what if, because it says earlier that it may be that my kids have done something wrong. So he began to mentally shift from moving in faith to moving in fear. And he actually says this later. So what I'm saying is that Satan, through his influence in getting Job to begin to think about the possibility of him losing everything. That's what Job was doing. He started off small. Now, Jesus one time said that if you had faith as a grain of a mustard seed. Now, I'm slowing this down because I want everybody to hopefully follow me as I try to explain this as best I can. The grain of a mustard seed is not faith.